Have you ever opened your front door and been told to leave a home you legally own? Not a rental. Not a leased property. Not a house with missed mortgage payments. A home that belonged to you, free and clear. Because that's exactly what happened to me. I owned a $34 million oceanfront mansion overlooking the Pacific. I paid cash. No mortgage. No loans. No liens. No bank involvement. Just me, the deed, and what I thought was the home of my dreams. Then, one Tuesday morning, 3 HOA board members arrived at my front gate, carrying a letter that ordered me to leave my own property within 48 hours. At first, I laughed. I honestly thought it was some kind of misunderstanding. But when I looked into their faces, I realized nobody was joking. And what happened next uncovered a secret that had been hidden for decades. Welcome back to Vanessa's HOA, the channel where shocking HOA stories, neighborhood battles, and homeowner victories come to light. My name is Vanessa Pierce, and this is the story of how an HOA tried to take my $34 million mansion and accidentally exposed a secret buried for more than 30 years. The visit. The morning began like any other. The ocean was calm. The sky was crystal clear. Waves rolled gently against the cliffs below my property. I sat on the terrace with a cup of coffee, enjoying the view that had convinced me to buy the mansion 6 months earlier. Life felt peaceful. Then my security system chimed. Visitors at the front gate. I glanced at the monitor. 3 people stood outside. Carla Whitfield, the HOA president, the HOA treasurer, and a private security officer I had never seen before. Something felt wrong immediately. They weren't smiling. They weren't carrying paperwork for a routine matter. Their expressions looked cold, purposeful, almost rehearsed. I walked down to the gate and opened it. "Good morning," I said. Carla didn't return the greeting. Instead, she handed me a sealed envelope. "Miss Pierce," she said, "you have 48 hours to vacate this property." For a second, I thought I had heard her incorrectly. Then, I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was ridiculous. "I think you've got the wrong address." Carla didn't smile. "Read the letter." I opened the envelope. The moment my eyes scanned the first paragraph, the smile vanished from my face. The document claimed I was illegally occupying the property. According to the HOA's records, the mansion legally belonged to another family, the Marlowe family, the previous owners. I looked back up. There has to be a mistake. Carla crossed her arms. "Then I suggest you fix it quickly." The treasurer stared at the ground. The security officer remained silent. But Carla looked strangely confident, like someone who already believed she had won. And that confidence bothered me more than the letter itself. Because people don't usually act that certain unless they think they know something you don't. I watched them leave. Then I looked back at the mansion. For the first time since buying it, I felt uneasy. I had no idea that this strange letter would lead me into a mystery stretching back decades. The HOA declares war. The moment they left, I called my attorney. Within an hour, we were sitting in his office, reviewing every document related to the purchase. The sale contract, the title paperwork, the closing documents, wire transfer confirmations. Everything looked legitimate. Everything. The property had been purchased through attorneys. Funds had been transferred legally. Every signature appeared valid. Every step had been documented. At first, My attorney believed the HOA had simply made an administrative error. But then he pulled the county ownership records, and the room became very quiet. The information on file didn't match the documents I possessed. Not completely. Not even close. Several records had been altered. Additional paperwork appeared after the sale. Paperwork neither of us had ever seen before. The more documents we reviewed, the worse things looked. Every answer created 3 new questions. Every record revealed another inconsistency. By sunset, my attorney wasn't reassuring me anymore. He was warning me. Finally, he leaned back in his chair. His expression had changed. "Vanessa." "What is it?" He hesitated. "Someone filed a competing ownership claim." The words hit me like a punch. A what? A legal claim stating the property belongs to someone else. I stared at him. After I bought it? Yes. My stomach dropped. This wasn't a clerical mistake. Someone had intentionally created a challenge to my ownership. Someone wanted my mansion, and somehow the HOA was helping them. The question was why? What could possibly motivate someone to go this far? At that moment, I didn't know. But I was determined to find out. The deeper I dug, the stranger things became. Property records, trust documents, historical ownership transfers. Everything seemed connected, and none of it made sense. Then, I discovered something shocking. The man who supposedly sold me the mansion had actually passed away months before the transaction was finalized. I stared at the screen, certain I was reading it wrong. I checked again. Same result. The seller was deceased, which created one very serious problem. How could a dead man legally sell a mansion? Someone had forged authority. Someone had manipulated records. And someone was counting on nobody noticing. The deeper I dug, the more names kept appearing. The same witnesses, the same signatures, the same people. Again, and again, and again. It looked less like a mistake and more like a system. That night, I reviewed security footage from around the property. Around 2 a.m, several individuals appeared near my utility building. They weren't guests. They weren't maintenance workers. And they definitely didn't belong there. The footage showed them tampering with equipment, moving quickly, trying not to be seen. My instincts immediately kicked in. I backed up every recording, every email, every document, every piece of evidence. Because something much larger was happening. And for the first time, I suspected my mansion wasn't the only property affected. The next morning, I contacted a forensic document specialist, someone I trusted from a previous business investigation. After reviewing the records, she called me. Her voice sounded unusually serious. "Vanessa, how bad is it?" There was a long pause. Then she answered, "This goes back much further than your purchase." "How far?" Another pause. Decades. That single word changed everything. The secret they never wanted exposed. The investigation uncovered something unbelievable. 30 years earlier, ownership records connected to the estate had been manipulated. A forged transfer, a falsified transaction, documents that never should have been approved. Yet somehow They had survived every review process. Year after year, decade after decade. The fraud remained hidden because nobody looked closely enough. Until now. The mansion's ownership history had been built on paperwork that wasn't legitimate, and the people controlling the HOA knew it. That realization explained everything. The pressure, the threats, the sudden eviction demand. They weren't protecting the neighborhood. They were protecting a secret. And they believed I would leave quietly. They believed I would be intimidated. They believed I would walk away. Instead, I kept digging. 2 days before the deadline expired, a black SUV pulled into my driveway. Carla stepped out. Behind her stood a locksmith carrying equipment. My security cameras recorded everything. They weren't threatening to take my home anymore. They were preparing to take it. I opened the front door while holding my phone, recording, documenting, protecting myself. Carla approached confidently. But before she could speak, I interrupted. "You should hear what investigators found." Her expression changed immediately. I explained the evidence, the forged transfers, the manipulated records, the hidden ownership chain, the decades of suspicious activity. Every detail, every document, every discovery. For the first time since meeting her, Carla looked nervous. Very nervous. Then I told her the most important. Justice arrives. Over the following weeks, investigators reviewed decades of records. What they discovered shocked the entire community. Multiple transactions were flagged. Several former HOA board members became subjects of investigation. Questions that had been ignored for years suddenly demanded answers. Residents were furious. The story spread throughout the region. People who once trusted the HOA now wanted accountability. The more investigators uncovered, the worse the situation became for those involved. Then, the decision finally arrived. County officials officially confirmed my ownership rights. The mansion legally belonged to me. The eviction attempt failed completely. The competing ownership claim collapsed. And the people responsible suddenly found themselves facing serious scrutiny. As for Carla and several board members, their future became much less certain. Investigations continued. Records were reviewed. Questions remained unanswered. But one thing was clear. The days of secrecy were over. Today, I still live in that mansion, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The sunsets are still breathtaking. The waves still crash against the cliffs below. And every morning, I still drink coffee on the terrace where this story began. But every time I look across the water, I remember something important. The biggest threats aren't always strangers. Sometimes they're the people hiding behind authority. The people who assume nobody will challenge them. The people who think rules only apply to everyone else. They gave me 48 hours to leave my own home. They thought money would make me surrender. They thought authority would make me obey. They thought fear would make me walk away. Instead, I asked questions. And the moment I started asking questions, their entire story began falling apart. Because sometimes that's all it takes. One question. One document. Instead, they exposed a secret that changed an entire neighborhood forever. And that's a lesson I'll never forget. Thank you for watching Vanessa's HOA. If you enjoyed today's story, tell us in the comments. If an HOA tried to force you out of your own home, would you fight back or walk away? And don't forget to subscribe to Vanessa's HOA for more unbelievable HOA stories, neighborhood drama, and homeowner battles.